Tesla's Elon Musk is now heaping excessive praise on China's climate plan. Now, I understand why, because China is threatening to prevent him from selling his electric cars, right? They say he's a national security threat, or his cars are a national security threat, and therefore they won't let the military and people who work for the state buy any. Well, the military and the state is probably half their population. So I get what Elon is doing. The Communist Party of China also says, get this, they will get to net zero emissions by 2060. Who's going to enforce that one? Now, Musk said, quote, these are very aggressive goals, and I think they're great goals, and I wish other countries had these goals, end quote. Now, I still think Elon's the smartest guy on the planet, but his lack of skepticism may have something to do with the fact that China accounted for about a fifth of Tesla's global revenue in 2020. I understand sometimes you just have to do things in order to do business. So let's bring in Dr. Michael Pillsbury, Director of the Center for Chinese Strategy at the Hudson Institute. Gosh, I have so many things for you, Mike. It's great to see you again. First of all, you know, I think Elon's pretty transparent, even though he's not being at all transparent. How do you read it? How do you read his story?
Well, I hate to single Elon Musk out. A lot of our CEOs and billionaires say similar things. They're kind of summoned over to Beijing sometimes for these meetings that Elon Musk went to of a lot of CEOs with the Chinese Prime Minister or Xi Jinping himself. And then they're told to help improve U.S.-China relations. The only thing I didn't like about the 90-second clip is when Elon Musk says, well, China's going to have the largest economy in the world. Oh. That strikes me as a little bit of defeatism. And you and I ought to say, no, Elon, America's going to be number one, at least by 2060.
I'm going to call him and call him up.
I understand what he's doing.
I'm going to call him up. If I can get you hooked into it, we'll both say no. No, Elon. He's, by the way, he's a very, really, I know, he's a very charming man. He's a very brilliant man. He wants to sell electric cars in China. I get it. But you maybe don't have to. By the way, just as a thought here, it's not really where I wanted to go with you, but so China's going to end fossil fuels or carbon emissions by 2060. Right. Michael Pillsbury, who's going to enforce that, do you reckon?
Well, in a way, it's a joke. It's a test of John Kerry, whether he's going to get enforcement mechanisms the way our friend Bob Lighthizer certainly did for the Phase 1 trade deal. That had a way you could sue each other, and there'd be penalties, and the two sides' governments would get involved with violations. So far, the climate change people don't really want to talk very much about enforcement, police powers, and punishment. But it seems to me common sense tells us that that's going to have to be part of this deal. John Kerry's moving to the front now in U.S.-China relations, Larry. He's going to be on the phone with this large sort of Zoom meeting very soon. And that's when I think we'll find out if there's any flexibility. South Korea and Japan are saying 2050. I think our climate people are thinking more like 2030 or 2035. So there's a huge area for negotiation here. But enforcement's going to be key, because in 2060, I'm not sure I'll be able to study Chinese pollution behavior.
Oh, shucks. Yes, we will.
You will be here, though.
Yes, we will. Listen, anytime John Kerry goes to the forefront of U.S.-China relations, it is a very scary thing. I'm just sorry. It's with all due respect to Senator Kerry, or whatever he is now, scary, scary, scary. Mike Pillsbury, though, let us move on. Let's talk for a moment about this crazy meeting in Anchorage, Alaska, between our top diplomats, Blinken and Sullivan, and their top diplomats. And the Chinese were very harsh. I just want to get your assessment, because I'm kind of hearing different things from our friends who assess this differently. Where do you come out on that meeting, Mike?
Well, I don't think President Trump would have done it. I don't think he would have sent his Robert O'Brien and Mike Pompeo to a kind of pointless meeting where they just seemed to scold each other for an hour, using fairly harsh language, especially on the Chinese side. Hopefully, this is an effort to have Joe Biden understand just how tough the Chinese are, but they weren't giving anything, and it really was offensive language, especially this phrase that you Americans slaughter black people, using a lot of rhetoric that comes out of our far left, quoting basically back to the two moderate hawks here, Sullivan and Blinken. So it's a first step. I don't think President Trump would have done this. He'd want results from this meeting, and there were no good results.
You know, Michael Pillsbury, I think that's a great insight. I don't understand what the meeting was for, and we gave them all kinds of openings, and they took it. Because we put sanctions on, Biden put sanctions on for the Uyghur concentration camps and so forth, human rights violations, just before the meeting, which I think you would approve of. I did. So that was hard line, and then they go to this silly meeting, which is, you're right, it's just a shouting match. I didn't get that.
Well, also to compare it with President Trump, I agree with you, Larry. You've said it several times that we should praise the Biden team for what they're doing right. They're keeping most of Trump's China strategy. But President Trump's sanctions were pretty tough, especially the tariffs. These sanctions are quite light. These guys who are doing the oppressing in Xinjiang now can't visit America or Europe. You know, big deal. Their assets, if they have any in America or Europe, are going to be frozen. But they probably don't have any assets. These are Chinese Communist Party officials. So I don't see these sanctions as the end yet. They're a slap on the wrist. Biden may have to have much tougher sanctions in the months to come, or he may back down. We just don't know.
By the way, on the way out, if I can set this phone call up with Elon Musk, per capita basis.
I've got his email.
By the way, I got a cell phone.
Okay.
But, just saying. But
I like him a lot.
Yes. No, he's a very creative guy. Just saying. On a per capita basis, U.S. GDP is about $65,000 plus. On a per capita basis, China GDP is $10,500. So I know they have, you know, 2 million people, but we're way ahead of them. Even today, we're still way ahead of them. So let's be tough and not give our technology away. Anyway, Michael Pillsbury, thank you. Terrific stuff.